thing on? Is this thing on? Hey guys, in just about 2 months it will be fall here in Chicago. That means I'm going to be drinking pumpkin spice lattes and wearing Ugg boots. But anyway, yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. In today's video, we are taking a look at these newly released set of wheels that you see behind me from a company called No.6 No.6. I'm not really sure which one of the two is, and this is their new line of wheels. This is particularly their 45/50 line of wheels. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the brand, just a little bit of some of the conversations I've had with the owner of this brand. Of course, we're going to be talking about the specs on these wheels. We're going to get these bad boys weighed out. Spoiler alert, these actually are the lightest set of wheels that I've ever tested on this channel. And then of course, we're going to be taking these wheels out on the road because I do have some interesting thoughts on these wheels. And I think that these set of wheels might actually convert me over to rocking 30C tires on my road bike. So without further ado, let's begin.
So who is No.6? Well, No.6 is a wheel brand based in Shanghai, and the wheels are built in Xiamen, China. No surprises there. The price on these 45/50s is $1,500 USD, and I will have a discount code for you guys so that you can enjoy 10% off of your purchase from the website. Now, the brand No.6, they've made it very clear that they are trying to be a direct competitor to the Craft Racing Works wheels. I actually own a set of a CRW 5060s, and they are among some of my most favorite wheels that I've ever tested on this channel. I run them on my SL8, and I absolutely love them. Moving on to the wheel specs. Now the wheel specs on these is 45 millimeters in the front, 50 millimeters in the rear. And these are hooked rims. No messing around with hookless wheels. Personally, in my collection, I'm just not down with that. Now moving on to the width. Now this is where it gets really interesting or becomes a point of contention depending on who you talk to. But the external width on these bad boys is 34.4 millimeters in the front, 31.5 millimeters in the rear. Crazy wide rims for the road. Now the internal width on these is 28, that's right, 28 millimeters in the front, and then 24 millimeters width in the rear. So you can just imagine that if you were throwing on some 28s, 30s, or even 32C tires, that they definitely are going to pump up those tires beyond the specified width. Of course, we have carbon spokes. We have ceramic bearings. Now, the hub design is similar to the Craft Racing Works, meaning that they were designed from the ground up to accommodate this new generation of carbon spokes. And these hubs prevent the spokes from detensioning and coming loose from the hub. Now, this has been a hot topic as of lately. I'm not an engineer. There are plenty of other YouTubers, actually there are probably only like 2, who have discussed this topic in great lengths. But kudos to No.6 for thinking ahead as far as their hub design. And while we're still on the topic of hubs, the wheel use a 36 tooth star ratchet engagement. It's essentially the original DT Swiss design. Now, when you are selecting your wheels on the website, you can either select either black or white decals, and both Shimano and SRAM XDR free hubs are available on the website. Now, I've had plenty of phone conversations with the brand owner, and this is actually a special treat for me because I rarely get to do this. Typically, a brand will just message me on Instagram or send me an email and basically just say something along the lines of, hey, we like your channel. We're going to send you some wheels for review. Make sure you only say good things about our products, so and so forth. But this wasn't the case when I spoke to the brand owner. We had a lot of discussions just on cycling, just kind of what it's like to ride in Chicago, what it's like to ride in Shanghai. And the owner, he's not some marketing or finance bro trying to make a quick buck off of selling wheels. He's a very passionate and very strong cyclist based on what I've heard, and he's based in Shanghai. In fact, he actually founded a local club out there in Shanghai. I believe it's called Ride Now CC. And this club is probably one of the more popular, if not the most popular cycling club in Shanghai. And it comprises of rides that they organize. I believe they organize like over 250 rides across the calendar year, and it comprises of cyclists across all fitness spectrums. And this last point is important because when he spent his time testing out the wheels, comparing them to the likes of Revolve wheels, he's using these wheels and having them tested from local riders in his club, and they're descending down mountain ranges. They're using them for races. So he has a lot of data from his local cycling members on these wheels before he made his official rollout to the website. Now, I understand the logic of what he's trying to accomplish with these wheels. Essentially, he wanted to spec out these wheels to be lightweight for both climbing and accelerating, essentially being able to get you from 0 to 25 miles an hour or 40 kilometers as quickly as possible. Having the wide internal width means that you get the rolling resistance, and then you also get the stability and handling when descending or cornering. And then selecting this particular hub is a hub design that has been proven based on other brands that use this particular design of hubs. Now, at a high level, if you look at the specs, it's very easy to see that these wheels are being spec'd from an OEM wheel supplier. I mean, the front wheel is basically a gravel wheel. Well, it is actually a gravel wheel. But the thing is, for those who will make the argument and say, well, I can just spec these wheels myself and save a little bit of money by going directly to said OEM wheel supplier. And of course, you can definitely do that. It's no secret nowadays that as a consumer, you have plenty of options on how to purchase your wheels. You can either go through a brand or you can go through a custom wheel builder. The thing is, the majority of customers, they're just not going to be spending the time, the effort, or the resources to design their own custom wheels. It definitely is still a niche idea, basically, unless you are just perusing the online forums all day. The reality is the typical customer is just going to go through a brand and they're willing to pay the little bit of a markup. They're able to just have a set of wheels that are ready to go, they're ready to ship, they don't have to select their spokes, their internal width, all that stuff. They can just buy the wheels and then have them show up to your door in 2 weeks or less.
Back down memory lane. So 2 fun facts about Minnie Riperton. Number 1, she was born here in Chicago on the South Side in the Bronzeville neighborhood. And number 2, later on in her life, she went on to marry a man named Richard Rudolph. And together they had a daughter who is, you guessed it, Maya Rudolph, who is the famous actress and comedian off of SNL. And she also went on to star in a bunch of hilarious movies like Bridesmaid. So we're weighing out these No.6 or number 6 wheels. The advertised weight online, I believe it's like 1260. So let's see what we get. So for the rear wheel, we have 673 grams, 673 grams. See that, like so. And that is with a Shimano free hub body. And then for the front wheel, we have 599 grams, 599 grams, which gives us a grand total, including tubeless rim tape, 1,272. You guys see that? 1,272. So let's continue. Next up, let's talk about the tire setup that you see that I have here rocking on my Tavello Attack frame set. I've already done a full review on this frame. I love it, especially for what the type of performance you get at the price point. But let's talk about the tires. So on the website for this number 6, they say that these wheels are optimized for either 28C or 30C. For myself and for the viewers out there, like, I'm not an engineer, I don't really race that often, but I can't for myself in good faith put 28C tires on here. I mean, the internal width on the front one is like 28, so that just doesn't make sense to me personally. Now, I know they've done, this company has done testing out in the mountainside. They've had some of their super fast and racers use these wheels where they're descending down mountain ranges and things like that. And they say that 28 for them works really, really well. But for myself, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And even with the tires you see here, which these are 30C tires, Continental GP5000. These are actually tubeless tires, but I am rocking TPU inner tubes for right now. I want to make sure everything is dialed in as far as tire pressure goes and just see how they feel before I move over to tubeless. Actually, that's a lie. I'm not going to run tubeless on the road. I haven't in the past, and I don't think I ever will, especially with TPU tubes being so light. And the fact that because the internal width on these are so light, you can run pretty low tire pressure. So first, let's talk about how these tires measure up on these wheels. So on the front tire, rocking these 30C GP5000s, the width at the rim actually plumps out to about 33 millimeters. And then for the rear, the internal is a little bit more narrow, which just marginally, but they plump up these 30C in the back to 32 millimeters at the rim. So for tire pressure, overall, I'm rocking about 60 PSI in the front, and in the rear, I'm rocking about 65 PSI. And I use the Silka tire pressure calculator online. For my weight, I probably weigh like 76, 77 kilograms. And so for the entire system weight, it's probably, I don't know, you add another 8 kilograms for the bike, that puts you at like, what is that, 85, 89 kilograms for all, whatever. So that's the tire pressure, 60 in the front, 65 in the rear. And so because you are rocking such low tire pressure, you get the rolling resistance, number one. Number two is you get the cornering ability. Now, like I said, because I'm not constantly racing, I'm not someone that is always rocking my bike and taking all these corners, railing the corners at like 35 miles an hour, especially here in Chicago where we don't have any hills. So there's really no place for me to really descend to put these wheels to their absolute limits for cornering sake. But because of the PSI and just the width, internal width of these wheels, that should theoretically allow you to be able to corner better than a set of wheels that has a much narrow internal width and you're using smaller tires. Moving on to tire clearance. So for my particular frame, like I said, this is my Tavelo Attack. This frame is rated for 32C tires, and even though the actual rims themselves are much wider than 32C or 32 millimeters, as you can see, there's plenty of room on both sides of the chainstays to run wider wheels and tires. So when you're looking at the specs on these online, you might be asking yourself, well, these rims are so wide, I don't know if they're actually going to fit on my frame. But the thing is, most of the time where the issues come into play as far as tire clearance or wheel clearance goes, whatever you want to call it, tires or wheels, particularly it's where the tire is close to the chain stays and the seat stays, not so much the rim, because the rim is a little bit further back, which obviously it's wider back here where the chainstays are versus up here. And even as you can see, I think the really big issue for me is just the tire is maybe 4 millimeters into the cable for the Di2 cable for the front derailleur. But I'm only rocking this in dry weather. I'm not gonna be rocking this in mud, but at the widths of these tires, this really could be almost basically an all road setup. I mean, if you look at where we're at, we're on some trails where you could probably get away with rocking this tire combo. I mean, even though these are basically gravel wheels and they're being used for road just because of the specs on them, you know, I'm using them for road. So they're really not an issue with tire clearance at all, particularly on my frame. So if you do have 32C clearance on your frame, you should not have any problems at all rocking these tires. I think you could probably even run 32C tires on here, which will probably pump these up to like 33, 34, and you shouldn't have any problem at all with tire clearance. Next up, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is just how massively wide the internal width is on these wheels. Like I said, if you were to go to the website, it would say that these wheels are optimized for 28 and 30C tires. And I've had conversations back and forth with the owner, really just trying to quantify how they came to that conclusion. Now, like I said, because I'm not an engineer, I can't really attest for myself whether or not that actually holds any weight. But I just can't see myself rocking 28C tires on these wheels. And I think even at 30 is pushing it. But I believe, in my opinion, the saving grace is two things. One is the fact that I'm running tubes rather than tubeless. And number two, the fact that these rims are hooked rather than hookless. Now you're starting to see, especially in the pro crit fields and even on a world tour level, you're starting to see a lot of professional racers using these wider rims, like from Envy or from Revolve, and even like the modern day Envy wheels, those are hookless, and people are running tubeless on those, even though the internal width on those Envies aren't as wide as these. But because these are hooked and because I am using tube, I shouldn't have any issues where if I'm really railing a cornering, which I mean, I don't really rail corners like that, I shouldn't have any issues where there could be any potential burping of air and maybe you might lose immediately a bunch of tire pressure because you are rocking tubeless. But because I'm rocking tubes, that shouldn't be an issue with me. And again, because they are hooked, that means that the potential for the wheels to come off in a crazy corner should be significantly minimal. And if I'm wrong, if I'm completely wrong on this particular topic, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm sure there might be some other YouTubers out there who might question this, but I'm rocking tubes, and these are hooked wheels.
Free hub sound test on these No.6 50/45 wheels with the 36 tooth star ratchet engagement. Of course, we got my Tavelo Attack and my Nova to Ride oversized pulley wheels. Oh, and these hubs also, of course, do have ceramic bearings. So let's continue.
And moving right along, let's talk about my first ride impressions with these wheels. The best way I can describe these wheels, if I'm being honest, is they are just effortless. They are effortless across the board. Now I'm talking about this in the sense of an entire system. So I'm talking about the wheels, the tire width, the TPU inner tubes, of course the frame, all as a complete system. These wheels just feel effortless. And what I mean by that is they just glide over rough pavement. It's amazing how great they are. Of course, that is the tire pressure and the size of the tires. Because they're so light, when it comes to accelerating, especially when you're out of the saddle, it's immediate. It really is immediate. And at this depth of wheels, when you have the 50 in the rear and 45 in the front, despite the fact that they are so light, the good news is they handle crosswinds really, really well. Today, we maybe have like gusts around like 15 miles an hour for crosswinds, and these things are very stable. So they're stable because they're on the shallower side as far as depth goes. They're also stable because you are using wider tires, but they just feel so effortless. Naturally, I'm going to have to do a longer term review on these and really put these wheels through their paces. But so far, I would say I would rank these wheels right up there with my Craft Racing Works wheels, and I would even give the slight advantage to these wheels for two reasons. One is because the depth is a little bit more shallow than the ones that because of the Craft Racing Work wheels that I have, which is the 50/60. These do handle crosswinds a little bit better. And because the internal width on these are so wide, and because I'm rocking 30C tires and have a lower tire pressure, that just means the contact patch on these is fantastic. So for cornering, for going over rough pavement, they just feel really effortless. The one thing it is to note is even just making the jump from 30C tires, or excuse me, from 28C tires to 30C tires, the noise that these tire makes when you are up to speed, it kind of sounds like a monster truck, or maybe like a Jeep Wrangler using like oversized tires out on the highway. They definitely don't sound aero. They just sound like, oh man, I'm rocking some pretty big tires, especially when they're being plumped up to like 32 and 33 millimeters at the rim. They sound like monster truck tires, but they are plenty fast. Once you hit on the power and you're out of the saddle, right away, they just accelerate right up. So in that respect, you can tell that there has been some thought to how these wheels have been spec'd from the factory. So good job, No.6, on that front. So that is going to wrap up today's video, guys. Huge thank you to No.6 for sending me out these wheels to test and review. And of course, I will have a longer term review on these wheels as the summer progresses. But so far, I've been really enjoying these wheels a lot. Because they're so lightweight, acceleration is effortless. And because as an entire system, rocking these with 30C tires with the wider internal width on these rims, just floating over rough pavement just feels effortless. It almost feels like these wheels are a little bit deeper than what they actually are as far as the specs goes, just because of how fast they feel. And you really notice it when you are going over rough pavement and you kind of get to the prescribed speed you're looking for. But as always, guys, questions, comments, and concerns, please feel free to leave them down below, and I will check you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.